So our first panel, we're going to have these 3 toolkits, and if you want to come up, we have these tables and mics for you, and we will have you share a little bit about your work and the types of things that you're doing related to sustainability education in these toolkits.
Hello everyone, my name is Manuel-Navarrete, and I'm an associate professor in the School of Sustainability. I came to the idea of relational learning through my collaboration with indigenous people in the Ecuadorian Amazon. So I learned from them basically, as well as reading indigenous scholars and working with indigenous scholars here at ASU. My work is my research. I don't know how much you want to introduce us, but yes, okay, that's enough. Okay. You can check what they do in the webpage. So my toolkit, the toolkit that we co-created with Brian and Gillian is about supporting people who want to use relational approaches in the context of learning communities. So it's for anyone who is facilitating a learning community. And a learning community can take place in the context of a classroom or in a more informal context, right? But the notion of understanding the learning processes being embedded in a learning community, I think is important for using this toolkit. Unless you get this or it in this way, it's gonna be maybe not for you. So. And that's challenging because we have a habit developed over years, and we have been educated in approaching learning contexts and environments as individuals, right? And we have to perform as individuals. Learning happens in our brains and all that, and we have to step a little bit outside that mindset and get into the mindset of learning as a collective process, right? In which we are entering it as a group. The toolkit has 4 sandboxes to play with relational approaches, and each sandbox has like a theme, a relational theme. One is about creating relationships in the classroom. The other one is about knowledge co-production. Then we have one focused on pluriversality, and one based on art-based art-based methods to approach relational learning in creative ways. I guess that's...
Yeah, that's perfect. And as David, as you were talking, when we pulled up too, you can see the sort of front page of this toolkit on the RCE Greater Phoenix website, and you're able to come and explore the content. There's different guides, sort of instructions of how you want to use this, what type of target audience this has, and a video that really summarizes, similar to what you said, of the motivation behind this, the types of objectives that the toolkit might have. David, if I could ask one question, and we'll get to you, Sara. You talked about this importance of learning relationally and having learning be really a collective activity. I wonder if you could give us an example of how you've seen, whether from the toolkit or your work, this be a powerful, enriching experience for learners.
Well, in my view, or my belief is that all learning is relational. It's just that we forgot. So it's important for me, learning relationally means acknowledging that in the process of learning, we're going to build some sort of relationship. If you don't do that, then you are maybe accumulating information, which is, a capitalistic approach maybe. But it's not learning in my view. It's just storing information and all that. Learning involves some sort of change and transformation in yourself. And so that's a relational process. And for instance, if you are learning about sustainability, there is some conceptual games, let's say, that you have to, with definitions and everything, you enter, and it's not about finding the right the definition of sustainability, but playing with the different definitions, and through that, you are playing with all the other people who in the past or in the present are also playing that game of finding the definition. Normally we are unaware of that, but learning relationality means that you become aware of that thing. And it's not only at the level of definitions and abstract concepts, but it's at the level of, if you're learning about something and creating definitions and abstract concepts for the intellect to make sense of it at the same time, you can develop a relationship at the level of body, at the level of emotions, etc., etc. We do that normally, you know. I think that's because we are emotional as well as intellectual, and we have bodies and all that. But we are not necessarily aware of us doing that. And sometimes I think we are confused with a notion of learning that is only based on this abstraction and extraction and accumulation of information, decontextualization, etc., etc. So here we're talking about, you know, getting into the object with your full self, in a sense. That's the relational approach that the toolkit then provides a set of tools, a set of approaches to explore this full engagement.
Yeah, please go ahead. And I'll just add, I really appreciated that notion of taking this framework to help us redefine also ourself and relation to ourself and what that's embedded in, and thinking about context. And so we're not only talking about relations between humans, but nature and the more than human world, and perhaps you can touch on that.
Thank you so much. I'm curious to learn about your kid, so this is very exciting. Yeah, very happy and honored to be here. Thanks for inviting me to be part of this great group. I would like to first introduce myself. So other than what was written on the PowerPoint, I am director of the Biomimicry Center, but I also work at the Swedish Center for Sustainable Food Systems. And I would be amiss if I didn't introduce the rest of the team that has worked on our BioConnect kit, which is, as you were mentioning, is about our relationship with the natural world and how organisms can be our mentors and role models and teachers to a better world, to a more sustainable world, which is the world of biomimicry. So the partnership was actually established a few years ago, pre-COVID, between the Biomimicry Center at ASU and the Phoenix Zoo. The coordinator, who unfortunately was not feeling well this morning, Leslie, manages all the engagement for the zoo and is an excellent educator. It's also a collaboration with an institute called the Biomimicry Institute, based in Montana, that works on really bringing out that message of biomimicry to the world. They have a wonderful educators network across the world, so the United States and the world, and they have if you're interested to dip your feet in biomimicry, they have a database called Ask Nature, which is a place where you can be like, how would nature cultivate cooperative relations? How would nature harness energy? How would nature, and then there's a database of how organisms do that. So it's a great relationship that we have with them. And so we developed this kit specifically for this ecosystem, where people that are not from here think that there isn't nature here, but there's a ton of nature here. And so how do we get the younger students to connect and learn from the wonderful keystone species and organisms that inhabit our Sonoran Desert? And so we put together a kit that is geared for middle school students, 6, 7, and 8, and it assists teachers in making those connections during a week-long exploration. And we've done it in such a way that it actually links to the Arizona standards and to the next generation science standards, which is necessary for teachers. We don't want to burden them. We want them to realize that this can be something that is an asset to them. The kit is right here. It comes as a collection of different things. So there's lesson plans for 6, 7, and 8. And then there are actual nature things like, you know, a coyote tail and things like that. But it also has these 3D printed models that show the biomimetic kind of connection. And the reason why the connection with the zoo is so great is that these kits are actually rotated. So let's say I'm a 6th grade teacher at Conley, for example. I can request my kit and it comes to me on the 2nd week of January, and then I use it for the week and then it goes to someone else. But there's also the option for it to get printed, and some of the items get ordered, so there's the ability for it to be a lot more modular. In collaboration with the zoo, they also offer a training for teachers if they're interested, and they actually get paid for that training. But really the purpose of the kit is to say, these organisms here in the Sonoran Desert are the most adapted. They have evolved over many thousands of years to live in monsoons, to live in this heat, to be able to survive and thrive even. And how could we better learn that? And what are the lessons that we can get from that? And can these be the lessons for a more sustainable Arizona? And what are some ideas? So there's creativity that's related to it. There is leadership that comes out of it. So it's a lot of different components that go beyond the science, go beyond the relationality. And we've had some really positive feedback from teachers and students alike.
That was wonderful, and I think it's so heartening to hear of this, the synergies that happen as you engage partners from different areas of education. So you talked about the zoo, how this works with teachers, bringing academic research perspective almost from the university. I think that really is the type of networking that's been so valuable so far with the RCE. But I want to ask your question. We're even touching on this maybe right at the end, but thinking of this connection between biomimicry and sustainability, how does that connection really come out within the learning that your toolkit helps to advance, and why is it so important, do you think, as a basis for students and the types of things that they're getting out of their education?
Yeah, so our perspective at the Biomimicry Center and our collaboration with these other entities, other biomimicry groups, is that nature is our best teacher, really, and that we should just become better observers and better tuned and better adapted and be ourselves more in nature, right? And so part of this process is like, how do we attune to that? So how do we attune to that using science? What does science tell us? That how does the saguaro cactus have the ability to self-cool itself through convections that take place around the spines or the pleats, for example. So there's the science behind it, but also how can we as just human beings be better connected and observe and be in tune and be mindful of these organisms that ultimately we think we're part of that. So how are we better adapted and better connected to that space? So the kits, what they're doing is they're just giving a taster of that. So for 1 week, they do connect to the natural world. They do have a few activities that take place outdoors, and then they have these different elements that they can manipulate and look at more closely and do things to. So looking at heat and how that impacts the ears of a rabbit, and understand heat transfer and things like that by manipulating a few different activities. And then taking that to be like, oh, so what could that mean in terms of like providing heat in our environments? And so the purpose of it is like really taking them through these stages of reconnection, of really learning, of understanding what biology has to say, and then how can I take that and invent something out of it, innovate out of it. So that's the process.
Yeah, that was wonderful, thanks. And some of what you were sharing as well gets to, and unfortunately they're not here, but the third toolkit as well, thinking about this cultivating mindful connections and that awareness you talked about, Sara, as being able to understand and have this relationship with the world around you, but also thinking about how that comes back to your own personal life and how we can use these things as educators, but also just as humans existing in the world. So I want to open it up for maybe a few questions or discussion from you all to hear what insights maybe stood out to you, or synergies with the work you're doing, or questions that you might have for our panelists.
I'll just pitch it. It's all good. Hi, morning. Thank you for sharing your tooltips. They look amazing. I have a question for David Manuel. I am very interested in knowing how you apply the plurival versality. Can't speak this word. I love the concept of un mundo en el que quepan muchos mundos, right? Like a world where we can fit many worlds. In terms of sustainability, I know it will be a different learning experience for the different groups, right? But like, how do we land these concepts, like the concepts of sustainability in a non-Western, like capitalistic way when we're teaching, right? Like that's always the crux there.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't claim that I know how to do that. This is, the toolkit is actually more like creating a context in which you can explore the possibility, right? The main reasoning behind putting pluriversality in the context of relationality is that relationality can happen within one universe, right? Or across universes. And this requires, the two options require different types of skills. So the toolkit what is trying is to show and cultivate the skills that you need in terms of unlearning, for instance, in terms of questioning your own assumptions, in terms of understanding where your beliefs come from, things like that, so that you have the ability to maybe step outside of your universe and look at relationships that you couldn't even imagine when you were inhabiting your own universe. So, but it's not like a recipe or you know, it's just, okay, it's a possibility, it's an invitation more than, and hopefully people get excited about this exploration and become, you know, pluricosmonauts or something. Yeah. I just made up. Thank you for the question. That was.
I have a question for the biomimicry project, and I am looking at the connections with the curriculum here with the standards. So I'm wondering what have been the main challenges working with schools, because schools have a standard curriculum, they have a limited amount of hours, teachers are focused usually on the tests and so on. So what are the main challenges that you have faced working with schools and strategies to overcome those challenges?
I wish Leslie was here because she's the one who's more, you know, connected directly with the teachers. But I would say some of the biggest challenges have been the actual learning themselves of this new material. So it's amazing how easy it is for the students to then learn. Like once they apply the kits in the classrooms, the students get it right away and they don't have assumptions, and it's easier for them to kind of innovate and think and go into that space. The teachers have a lot of learning to do, unlearning, I guess, a little bit, and then relearning. And so they're the ones that have a bit of a challenge to overcome that because they're busy, you know, like, so a lot of them are very excited. I would say the science teachers are science and math teachers are really excited about this kit and the program, but they just don't have the time to actually explore it and get to really delve into it. And this is not something that they were taught at any point, so that's really challenging. So to overcome this, in the past year, we've developed a training program with the zoo. So it's 2-hour Zoom webinar, and then a 6-hour in-person session at the zoo where we take them through the whole program. Just instead of a week, it's over 6 hours. And I think this has really helped teachers. We've specifically focused on schools in areas that are a little bit more underserved. So we're aiming to go more in rural areas as well in the coming years. But I think the biggest challenge is just the teachers being overworked, you know. But then they get excited. Like once they've gone through the workshop, they can't wait to apply it. They're very excited, but it's, yeah. I wouldn't want to be a teacher in middle school, to be honest, at this point. It's so hard. I was middle school, that was my first job, middle school teacher for like 5 years. Not again. Need so much energy.
I just have a quick question about how do you fund those teachers for the training?
Yeah, that's a bit of here and there. So far, it's mostly been through the Zeus connection. So our first fund came very generously from Women in Philanthropy, which is ASU's foundation that does a lot of great work and funds a lot of great work. So that started the BioConnect kits, the first round. And then because now we have the physical kit, the zoo has just established a few different grants. We're looking at some larger ones. Actually, there's one through, oh my God, EPA that we're looking at because there is that education and conservation kind of space in it. So we're looking at something in that space as well. But it's mostly been the zoo. And the zoo has like some fantastic supporters. So just partnering with them has been great because they already have a great network that they can tap into.
Other questions? Anything else? Or takeaways that stood out? I'll share one on my own and we can continue learning more about the other toolkits, but something both of you sort of highlighted is this notion of, we think about challenges in such a negative connotation often, but you both describe that as almost part of the process of going through this learning journey and thinking about how the challenge can be the thing that unlocks these new ways of thinking and being or relations that you might have and how those things are helping to contribute to what we're aiming to achieve. So a positive note for me at least, and maybe we can take this away together, is how we look at challenges as not necessarily the obstacles along the way, but the thing that helps us get to the next step. So I appreciate you both sort of highlighted that, stood out to me. So thank you, David and Sara, for sharing about your toolkits, your efforts to get there, and to your team members who aren't able to be here today, but we really appreciate it. And thanks so much. So let's give them a round of applause.